So the Dolomites are famous for their breathtaking beauty, their unique geology, for providing access to high alpine areas that is just not found elsewhere in the world. And so the Dolomites were inspiring and life-changing to me when I first saw them in 1997, and they have been inspiring to me every year since, just about every year. So spending time each year here reminds me of just how awesome our world is, and that excites me to get out and exercise and to bring that excitement back into my daily life back at home. And so the kind of inspiration that the Dolomites brings is really kind of my mission to share with others. I love empowering people to get up close and to similarly be inspired by these mountains, to take home renewed excitement for nature, for getting outside, for walking, and for being healthy. So what makes the Dolomites different is how accessible they are. These are trails that have been maintained literally for centuries. They have good signage. They lead to farms and huts offering hikers refuge from the elements. And then there are 450 chairlifts, gondolas, and cable cars that are scattered across the range that easily whisk people and supplies up into the alpine areas. And so this allows the high mountains to be, the beginning of a hike rather than the final destination that's really only for the fittest of hikers, which is kind of what we're used to here in North America. And so with an amazing number of mountain huts offering refuge, so that gives us the Italian word rifugio, which is a mountain hut. And they're stocked with great food and drinks, overnight accommodations. And so the Dolomites are popular with trekkers who are hiking from hut to hut. So with this in mind, I'm offering a brand new tour venture for me, a 10-day tour next year called the High Dolomites. And this is a trip that takes in some of my favorite hikes and huts. It alternates 2 nights in mountain huts with 2 nights in hotels. And so we can hike with small backpacks and travel. Actually, our sort of travel luggage can then get delivered to our hotels. And this keeps us walking light on our toes and on our feet. And so the tour takes in some newly remodeled huts that have private rooms in addition to the traditional dorms. And it's really only been with these recent upgrades in services in certain areas that the idea of offering an overnight tour here, kind of in the style of my guided by tours, has really become possible. So in this slideshow, I'm going to show you 2 huts that are part of this 10-day tour that I visited in this last season here in September. And that'll be the Alpe di Tires hut, which is here. I'm not sure if you can see the arrow. We'll go through the Violet Valley and then into the Rosengarten group and the very dramatic Sontner Pass hut. So in September, I spent a week hiking the trails just to get the latest information and to meet these specific hut managers and just to get a lay of the land. So the photos I'm showing you here in this presentation are some of the trails that will be on next September. The mountain trails on this trip are well-traveled and well-maintained. They do, of course, undulate up and down, so basic fitness and agility is needed. I've selected routes that require about a half-day hike between our overnight huts. You can roughly plan on walking about 4 hours a day, up to 8 miles. And on some days, there can be as much as 3,000 feet of elevation gain. So those are good walks, but I find that people of sort of reasonable fitness are easily able to do this. And in fact, there's a whole kind of industry of trekkers coming from all over Europe and all over the world to do hikes of just about this level of physical exertion. So of course, the views will be stunning, but you got to expect that there will be some obstacles. So like this amazing section of ridge trail. You can see in the background how the trail sort of leads up along that ridge. Spectacular views, but this is like prime cattle grazing country. The dairy products at the breakfast at the huts are just spectacular. They're so good, so delicious. And the cows, yeah, you got to take care and give them their space. So here, I just had to sort of duck under the fence on the right to kind of pass by and just let them be. And then the trail sort of leads up to the first overnight hut that we'll be staying at on the tour. This is the Alpiditidas Refugio, which was remodeled around, I think it was about 2016 was the last remodel. This hut was originally built after World War II by a legendary local who hauled the original construction materials by himself up to this place and built the first version of this hut. And then his family over the years have remodeled and expanded, and now it's quite the operation. This is the dining room, serving lunch and dinner to the overnight guests. And there's upwards of about 100 people can actually sleep here every night. They have a mix of private rooms and dormitories for people to spend the night. So there's a great atmosphere of happy and hungry hikers from all over the world coming together. And the great joy of staying in the mountains is to experience, the sunsets and the sunrise. The photos never really do them justice, but this one was relatively modest by Dolomite standards, and it's still stunning to witness in person here. It's something that you got to kind of just see for yourself. After a great dinner and overnight sleep at Alpiditidas, which you can see down there in the valley on the left in the photo, headed out for what will be a very dramatic day number 4 on this High Dolomites tour. So we're going into the Rosengarten group. So here I am with my gear for a 3-day, 2-night kind of mini trek. I have a day pack with all the essentials for mountain weather. I wish I had turned in the photo to kind of show you the day pack, but it's basically a just sort of small backpack. And there's no need to carry a huge pack with food supplies and a tent and a sleeping bag. The huts provide all of that. So even in the rugged areas, there's always a hut within an hour or so walk away. So refuge, creature comforts, and safety is never very far away. And this really allows us to get to places that maybe we wouldn't otherwise be able to get to. And the views here are just absolutely stunning to be part of these mountains. This is a good look at the type of trails that are above the tree line and kind of how close we get into the mountains. Here's an area where the trail gets pretty rugged and a little steep. So anywhere where there's a bit of exposure, there's usually help or some kind of help. And so here on the right, there is a heavy steel cable that's anchored to the rock. It's like a handrail that provides safety all the way down this kind of steeper section. So these can get cold when it's cold out, so you got to bring a pair of gloves to hold on to the cable. But here we go. This day wasn't too bad. This was a typical September day, so I went right at the same time of year that we'll be doing this next year. And we're at between 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 feet of elevation. And so temperatures on this day were in the 50s or so. And so it's kind of perfect weather for hiking. So down the cable we go. And then across the next valley. So here's a fantastic photo of that on the left. You can see the trail kind of cutting across the mountain there on the left. And it makes its way up to that pass. It's called Passo Principe in Italian. And way up at that pass, it's kind of hard to see in the photo, but I put a red square there to outline. What I saw in the distance was a construction crane. So, what a construction crane. There's no roads around here. I've just hiked in many, many miles to get to this place. And so on the right, I've zoomed in so you can see that construction crane. And it is just spectacular what they can build in the Dolomites. There's a long tradition of building up at these high mountain, impossible to reach places. And that tradition actually dates back to World War I, but we'll talk about that in a future talk. So slow and steady gets you there. This is Refugio Principe. This is the lunch stop, one of the possible lunch stops along the way. Still open during construction. Here's a look of the work in progress. Down the other side, we're going into what's called the Violet Valley. And this is a pretty easy descent down to the next huts along the route. So here we have the Violet Refugio on the left, and in the middle of the photo is really one of the oldest and most traditional and best preserved refugios. It's called Refugio Preus, and this is just a beautiful building in the kind of Tyrolean style. And so this is a great place to stop for lunch. You can sit out on this deck, and there's just something so wonderful about this, rugged mountains with table service, right? And amazing food. So pasta and dumplings and roasted sausages, and venison, beer and strudel, of course. You can eat everything because you're going to burn it off going up the next section of hike, which you can see here in the distance of this photo. We're going right up that gap between those towers in the distance. So here we go. This is where we're going. And this section is the most rugged of the trip next September. So I wanted to show that to folks so you can kind of get an idea of the most rugged section. So not the typical section, but the most rugged section. So here's a look at the trail. Heading up, this is quite steep. Sometimes the photos are kind of struggling to kind of show the grade and everything. But this trail makes its way steeply uphill. Takes the average person about 90 minutes to do this section of trail up to the Sontner Pass hut where we're going to stay overnight. And there are places where there is a bit of exposure. So again, of course, here is the steel cable handrail that provides safe access up this kind of rugged mountainous section. So this is a good look of what it's like. And you just go slowly, and you just take each step one step at a time, and you make your way. So here's some folks coming down. Of course, uphill hikers always yield to the downhill folks. And they have the right of way. You can see there's red paint kind of marking the trail, the path, so you know where to go, where the sort of safer passages are. And everybody kind of makes their way. You can see those cables maybe in the distance at the top, and that is that's a cableway for bringing supplies up to the huts high above, and there's a power line that runs up there, so there's electricity, of course, as well. About 90 minutes later, you're at the top, and so there are sort of two high huts here next to the very dramatic Violet Towers that you see there on the left. Famous rock climbing area in the Dolomites. We're not here to do rock climbing. We're just trekking and enjoying the scenery and staying overnight. But this is the Alberto I Refugio. And about 20 minutes hike up above that is a second high pass, Sontner Pass, and this hut with the same name. So this is the newly remodeled Refugio Sontner Pass. It's at about 9,000 feet of elevation. It's really a stunning work of architecture. And there are no roads here. There's just that cable line with a basket to haul up supplies. So it's quite the feat of architecture. It took 2 years to do the remodel, and it just only reopened in 2023, receiving overnight guests. And I was there in September. And this place is getting discovered. It has this great dining room. It has this awesome deck with a view out over the valley. It has private rooms and dorms, so I want to give you a look at that. No boots are allowed inside, so every hiker brings hut slippers. For me, those would be my Hawaiian locals. Hello, Trina. All right, and the boot room has heaters to dry out your wet boots. So amazing, and you're welcome. And it feels so good in the morning the next day to put on warm boots. The rooms are very simple and nice. You can see the kind of simple accommodations. You bring a small bed liner that is just about the size of your fist in your backpack, but it's you open it up and you lay that down on the mattress and you kind of slip your body into that and you put the comforter on top, and it's just super cozy and wonderful. Here, of course, there's communal bathrooms, bathroom down the halls. Showers at most huts are going to cost extra if you want them to be warm. So you pay €5 for a coin down at the reception of the hut, and you put your coin into a machine in the shower and you get 3 minutes of hot water. Now, this will be a full service tour, so everybody gets one €5 and 3-minute shower included in the tour. So luxury. Obviously weather can really throw a wrench into plans when you're hiking in the mountains. That's normal. We sort of roll with that. And so the huts are prepared for this. This happens all the time. So the huts never turn people away at the end of the day. If you can't make it to your planned destination, there's always a place for people at the huts along the route. So if they're full, they just simply lay out mattresses in the hallway or down in the storage room in the basement or whatever, and they make it work. They never turn people away. It's something to really kind of understand when you're going there. The morning that I woke up at the next morning at Sontner Pass, rain was starting to move in. There was a weather system coming, and so the weather apps are so good now. There's new weather stations in the Dolomites, and there are these apps that can give you a detailed weather forecast for any GPS point on the planet, really. And so that's important because you can select the place where you're hiking at high elevation and get a detailed forecast for what's happening at that elevation. And so on this day, we had rain predicted, and then snow was to start falling later on in the day. So we just hiked out. Everyone in the hut talks about the weather forecast. The hut managers make sure everybody knows what's coming, so everybody is well informed. And so my plans were to hike out that morning, and I did so with my newfound trail family that I met along the way. We made our way down into the valley, and so with that snow that was forecast, I did have to sort of change plans, but I hiked out of the Violet Valley, took 2 chairlifts down to the road, way down near the town of Canadze. And they actually got that day a couple inches of snow way down at the bottom of the valley. So, snow is not common in September, but it does occasionally happen. And when it does, you just adapt. You just go down to lower elevations and you just hang out. Wait it out, and yes, you just get a pizza and enjoy. And so this is what I had there. And then following days, the snow sort of changed things, but the snow was also just so beautiful. It just absolutely highlights the mountains, the terrain. It's gorgeous to look at. But if you want to do any kind of hiking into areas that have received snowfall, you got to have snow spikes. And so picked up a pair and put those onto the bottom of my shoes and was basically able to go everywhere with these snow spikes. And that was a lot of fun because it opened up terrain that might not have otherwise been able to get to. And so here, things kind of melt out, and you always are going to have plan A, B, C, and D. And so you just kind of make your way. And dare I say, I saw this tour guide here with this group. And she was literally chopping the path for her group to walk on because they didn't have spikes. Okay, and it is slippery to walk on snow if you don't have spikes, obviously. And so I don't know where she got this pickaxe, but she was literally preparing the trail for her group to walk past. And no, I won't be doing that. But I just wanted to show you the length that people will go to see these mountains. And man, they're just gorgeous in the snow. So even though that's rare, I have seen it snow a handful of times in my 25 years of going to the Dolomites in the month of September. It can snow. It's not common, but it does happen. And when it does, dare I say, the mountains are even more spectacular and beautiful. So here's the image that I opened up with. This just shows the beautiful terrain of these famous mountains. So here it is, before the snow, and same vantage point with a little bit of snow on it, and it's just absolutely spectacular. So with so many huts everywhere, there's always great options, and it's just super fun to be there with people, getting excited about the mountains, being outside, getting fresh air, and getting loose and limber, day after day, getting into shape, and then taking that fitness with you home. In a future Guided by Sunday Travel Talk, I'll tell you more about the second half of this tour. That'll be on my High Dolomites trip next year. And that moves over to the front lines of World War I battles that were fought between the Austrians and the Italians. And there are stunning hikes there through an open-air museum that include trenches and tunnels. And really, it's an amazing way to connect with the important history of the First World War. So the Dolomites are a special place to me. I take a lot of pride in bringing people here and seeing them inspired by these mountains and watching people literally reach new heights. It's a lot of fun. It's really a wonderful gift to ourselves to take home with renewed appreciation for our natural world and the inspiration to get out and walk and exercise and be well. So here's the route. I hope you'll give it consideration for next year. And if you go to the Guided By webpage and click on tours and go down to the High Dolomites, you'll get all of the details.